Learn to read. Mehmet and Rail were two best friends who loved to play together. They would play in the park, ride their bikes, and build forts in the backyard. One day they were playing in the park when they saw a sign that said, "No running." Mehmet and Rail were confused. They didn't know what no running meant. They asked their mom, and she explained that it meant that they weren't allowed to run in that area. Mehmet and Rail were disappointed. They wanted to run, but they knew that they had to follow the rules. They decided to learn how to read so that they could understand signs. Mehmet and Rail's mom helped them learn the letters of the alphabet. They practiced reading simple words, and they started to learn how to follow directions. One day, Mehmet and Rail were playing in the park again. They saw the same sign that said no running. This time, they knew what it meant. They didn't run, and they didn't get in trouble. Mehmet and Rail were proud of themselves for learning how to read. They knew that it would help them in many ways, and they were excited to continue learning. The Wise Elephant's Lesson. Arab and Eliza were two young children who loved to play together. They would often play in the forest, climb trees, and explore the river. One day, Arab and Eliza were playing in the forest when they came across a large elephant. The elephant was old and wise, and Arab and Eliza were curious about him. They asked the elephant if he would teach them about the forest. The elephant agreed, and he told them many stories about the plants and animals that lived in the forest. Arab and Eliza were fascinated by the elephant's stories. They learned about the different types of trees, the animals that lived in the river, and the stars that shone in the sky. After a while, Arab and Eliza started to get bored. They wanted to go and play, but the elephant told them that they should stay and listen. "If you want to learn, you must be patient," the elephant said. "You must also be willing to make mistakes." Arab and Eliza didn't understand what the elephant meant. They had never made a mistake before, and they didn't think that they would ever make one. "How can we make mistakes if we've never done anything wrong?" Arab asked. "You will make mistakes," the elephant said. "Everyone makes mistakes, but it's important to learn from your mistakes and grow stronger." Arab and Eliza didn't understand, but they decided to stay and listen to the elephant. The elephant told them a story about a young elephant who was very proud of himself. The young elephant thought that he was the strongest and smartest elephant in the forest. One day, the young elephant was playing in the river when he saw a crocodile. The crocodile was much bigger than the young elephant, but the young elephant was not afraid. The young elephant charged at the crocodile, but the crocodile was too quick for him. The crocodile bit the young elephant on the leg, and the young elephant fell into the river. The young elephant was scared, but he knew that he had to do something. He used all of his strength to swim to the shore. The young elephant was exhausted, but he was also wiser. He had learned that it is important to be humble and to learn from your mistakes. Arab and Eliza listened to the elephant's story, and they finally understood what he meant. They learned that it is okay to make mistakes as long as you learn from them. Arab and Eliza thanked the elephant for his lesson, and they promised to be more careful in the future. Arab and Eliza continued to play in the forest, but they were more careful now. They knew that it was okay to make mistakes as long as they learned from them. Arab and Eliza grew up to be wise and strong elephants. They never forgot the lesson that the wise elephant had taught them, and they always remembered that it is important to learn from your mistakes. The moral of the story is that it is okay to make mistakes. Everyone makes mistakes, but it is important to learn from them and grow stronger. Learning about emotions. Nihan and Aryan were two best friends who loved to play together. They would play in the park, ride their bikes, and build forts in the backyard. One day, they were playing in the park when they got into a fight. Nihan wanted to play tag, but Aryan wanted to play hide and seek. They started arguing, and soon they were both feeling angry. Nihan's face was red, and he was stomping his feet. Aryan was yelling and making angry noises. Their teacher, Miss Smith, saw them fighting and came over to help. She asked them what was wrong, and they both started to cry. Miss Smith sat down with them and talked about different emotions. She told them that it's okay to feel angry, but it's not okay to lash out at others. She taught them how to express their anger in a healthy way, such as taking deep breaths or talking about what's making them angry. Nihan and Aryan listened to Miss Smith, and they started to feel better. They apologized to each other, and they decided to play tag. They had a lot of fun playing, and they learned a valuable lesson about identifying and expressing their emotions. Learn to share. Rayam and Aliana were two best friends who loved to play together. They would often play with their toys, go to the park, and even have sleepovers. One day, Rayam and Aliana were playing with their toys when they started to argue. Rayam wanted to play with the new toy that he had gotten for his birthday, and Aliana wanted to play with the doll that she had gotten for her birthday. They argued for a long time, and they were both starting to get angry. Finally, Raham's mom came over and asked them what was wrong. Rayam and Aliana told their mom that they were arguing about who should get to play with the new toy. Raham's mom listened to them both, and then she said, "Why don't you share the toy? You can both play with it at the same time." Rayam and Aliana looked at each other, and they both realized that their mom was right. They had never thought of sharing the toy before, but it was a great idea. Rayam and Aliana started to play with the toy together, and they had a lot of fun. The why learned that sharing is a lot more fun than arguing, and they also learned that it is important to take turns. Raham's mom was very proud of them for sharing the toy. He knew that they had learned a valuable lesson, and he was happy that they were able to play together peacefully. The moral of the story is that sharing and taking turns are important skills to learn. When we share, we are being kind and considerate of others. When we take turns, we are being fair and equitable. Sharing and taking turns are important skills that can help you make friends, get along with others, and have fun. The Lost Teddy Bear. Nihan and Ariz were two best friends who loved to play together. They would often play in the park, go to the movies, and even sleep over at each other's houses. One day, Nihan and Ariz were playing in the park when Nihan's teddy bear fell out of his backpack. Nihan didn't notice that his teddy bear was gone, and he and Ariz continued to play. After a while, Nihan realized that her teddy bear was missing. She looked everywhere for it, but she couldn't find it. Nihan was very upset. She loved her teddy bear, and she didn't know what to do without it. Ariz helped Nihan look for her teddy bear. They looked all over the park, but they couldn't find it. Nihan was starting to lose hope. She thought that she would never see her teddy bear again. Just when Nihan was about to give up, Ariz saw something in the bushes. He went over to investigate, and he found Nihan's teddy bear. Nihan was so happy to see her teddy bear. She thanked Ariz for finding it, and she gave Ariz a big hug. Nihan and Aries, learned a valuable lesson that day. They learned that it is important to be responsible with your belongings. They also learned that it is important to help others find lost things. The moral of the story is that being responsible and helping others are important qualities. When we are responsible, we take care of our belongings and we don't lose them. When we help others, we make the world a better place. If you want to find lost things, be responsible and be helpful. If you are responsible, you will take care of your belongings and you won't lose them. If you are helpful, you will be willing to help others find lost things. The helpful robots. Hazel and Burek were two best friends who loved to play together. They would often play video games, build robots, and even code their own games. One day, Hazel and Burek were playing video games when they saw a news report about a group of robots that were being used to help people in need. The robots were being used to deliver food to people who were elderly or disabled, and they were also being used to help people with disabilities get around. Hazel and Burek were inspired by the robots in the news report. They decided to build their own robots to help people. Hazel and Burek worked hard on their robots. They used their knowledge of video games, coding, and robotics to create two robots that were very helpful. The first robot was a delivery robot. The delivery robot could deliver food, medicine, and other supplies to people who were elderly or disabled. The delivery robot was also equipped with a camera, so it could check on people's homes and make sure that they were safe. The second robot was a mobility robot. The mobility robot could help people with disabilities get around. The mobility robot was equipped with a wheelchair, so it could take people to the store, to the doctor, or to any other place they needed to go. Hazel and Burek were very proud of their robots. They knew that their robots would help a lot of people. Hazel and Burek decided to donate their robots to a local charity. The charity was very happy to receive the robots, and they immediately put them to work. The delivery robot was able to deliver food and medicine to people who were elderly or disabled. The mobility robot was able to help people with disabilities get around. The robots were a huge success. They helped a lot of people, and they made a big difference in the lives of many people. Hazel and Burek were very happy to see that their robots were helping people. They knew that they had made a difference, and they were proud of themselves for using their technology to help others. The moral of the story is that technology can be used to help others. When we use technology to help others, we are making the world a better place. The brave explorer. Raha and Ukba were two best friends who loved to explore. They would often go on adventures in the forest near their home. One day, Raha and Ukba were exploring the forest when they came across a cave. They had never been in a cave before, and they were a little bit scared, but they were also curious, so they decided to go inside. The cave was dark and damp, and Raha and Ukba could hear strange noises coming from inside. They were starting to get scared, but they kept going. After a while, they came to a large chamber. In the center of the chamber was a pool of water. The water was clear, and Raha and Ukba could see fish swimming in it. Raha and Ukba were amazed. They had never seen anything like it before. They decided to go for a swim in the pool. The water was cold, but it was refreshing. Raha and Ukba swam around for a while, and then they sat down on the edge of the pool. As they were sitting there, Raha and Ukba started to talk about their fears. Raha was afraid of the dark, and Ukba was afraid of heights. They talked about how their fears kept them from doing things they wanted to do. They talked about how they wanted to be brave and face their fears. After they talked, Raha and Ukba decided to go back into the cave. They were still a little bit scared, but they were determined to face their fears. They went back into the cave and explored it more. They found a lot of interesting things, including stalactites and stalagmites. They also found a secret passage that led to another chamber. In the second chamber, they found a treasure chest. Raha and Ukba were so excited. They had found a real treasure. They opened the treasure chest and found gold coins, jewels, and other valuables. Raha and Ukba were rich, but they were also brave. They had faced their fears and discovered a new world. The moral of the story is that it is important to face your fears. When you face your fears, you are able to discover new things and become a better person. Raha and Ukba were able to face their fears because they had each other. They knew that they could rely on each other, and that gave them the courage to keep going. If you are facing a fear, remember that you are not alone. There are people who care about you and who will support you. You can do it. Learn to follow instructions. Azel and Harab were two best friends who loved to play together. They would play in the park, go to the movies, and even sleep over at each other's houses. One day, Azel and Harab were playing in the park when they saw a sign that said no climbing. Azel wanted to climb the sign, but Harab told him that they weren't supposed to. Azel argued that it would be fun to climb the sign, but Harab said that it was important to follow instructions. He told Azel that if they didn't follow the instructions, they could get in trouble. Azel didn't want to get in trouble, so he agreed not to climb the sign. Harab was happy that Azel listened to him, and they continued to play in the park. Later that day, Azel and Harab were at home when their parents told them to clean their rooms. Azel didn't want to clean his room, but he remembered what Harab had said about following instructions. Azel started to clean his room, and he was surprised to find that it wasn't as hard as he thought it would be. He even found a few toys that he had lost under his bed. When Azel was finished cleaning his room, he felt proud of himself for following instructions. He knew that it was a good skill to have, and he was glad that he had learned it. Harab was also proud of Azel for following instructions. He knew that Azel would be able to use this skill in many other areas of his life. The moral of the story is that it is important to learn to listen and follow instructions. This is a skill that can help children in many different ways. When children learn to follow instructions, they are more likely to be successful in school and in other areas of their lives. Learn about hygiene. Esra and Maz were two best friends who loved to play together. They would play in the park, go to the movies, and even sleep over at each other's houses. One day, Esra and Maz were playing in the park when they saw a group of kids playing in the sandbox. The kids were all covered in dirt, and they were not washing their hands after they went to the bathroom. Esra and Maz were worried about the kids getting sick. They knew that it was important to wash your hands after you went to the bathroom, and they wanted to help the other kids learn about hygiene. Esra and Maz went over to the group of kids and asked them if they knew about hygiene. The kids said that they knew they were supposed to wash their hands, but they didn't really know why. Esra and Maz explained to the kids that washing your hands helps to prevent the spread of germs. Germs can make you sick, so it is important to wash your hands often. The kids listened to Esra and Maz, and they agreed to start washing their hands more often. Esra and Maz were happy that they could help the other kids learn about hygiene. The next day, Esra and Maz went back to the park. They saw the group of kids again, and they were all washing their hands after they went to the bathroom. Esra and Maz were proud of themselves for helping the other kids learn about hygiene. Esra and Maz continued to play with the other kids, and they all had a lot of fun. They learned that it is important to take care of your personal hygiene, and they all agreed to wash their hands more often. The moral of the story is that it is important to encourage children to wash their hands regularly, brush their teeth, and take care of their personal hygiene. When children learn about hygiene at a young age, they are more likely to continue these habits throughout their lives. Children should also be encouraged to take other steps to maintain their personal hygiene. These include 1. Taking a bath. 2 wearing clean clothes, 3 combing their hair, 4 keeping their nails trimmed. The Earth's Garden. Once upon a time, there was a little girl named Emma who loved to play in the garden. She would spend hours running through the flowers, playing with the butterflies and listening to the birds sing. One day, Emma was playing in the garden when she saw a group of older kids picking flowers. She asked them why they were picking the flowers, and they said they were going to make a bouquet to give to their teacher. Emma was sad to see the flowers being picked, but she didn't say anything. She just watched as the older kids took the flowers and walked away. That night, Emma couldn't sleep. She kept thinking about the flowers. She knew that the older kids didn't mean to be mean, but she also knew that they were doing something wrong. The next day, Emma went back to the garden. She found the spot where the older kids had picked the flowers and she started to plant new ones. She planted a variety of flowers, including daisies, roses, and tulips. Emma took care of her new flowers every day. She watered them, weeded around them, and protected them from the animals. Soon, Emma's flowers were blooming. They were so beautiful that people from all over the town came to see them. One day, the older kids came back to the garden. They were surprised to see how beautiful Emma's flowers were. They asked her how she had made them grow so well, and she told them how she had taken care of them. The older kids were sorry for picking the flowers in the first place. They promised Emma that they would never pick flowers again. Emma was happy that the older kids had learned their lesson. She knew that if everyone took care of the Earth's garden, it would be a beautiful place for everyone to enjoy. The moral of the story is that we should all take care of the earth. We can do this by planting trees, recycling, and reducing our use of energy. When we take care of the earth, we are making it a better place for ourselves and for future generations. The power of imagination. Emma was a little girl with a big imagination. She could imagine anything she wanted, and she loved to use her imagination to create new and exciting things. One day, Emma was playing in her room when she saw a blank piece of paper. She picked it up and started to draw. She drew a picture of a beautiful garden with flowers of every color. She drew a pond with a fountain in the middle and a swing hanging from a tree. As Emma drew, she started to imagine herself in the garden. She imagined herself walking through the flowers, smelling their sweet fragrance. She imagined herself sitting on the swing, swinging back and forth, and feeling the wind in her hair. Emma's imagination was so powerful that she could actually feel the breeze on her skin and the smell of the flowers in the air. She closed her eyes and could almost hear the birds singing in the trees. When Emma opened her eyes, she was surprised to see that the picture she had drawn was now real. The garden was there, just as she had imagined it. The flowers were blooming, the fountain was flowing, and the swing was swaying in the breeze. Emma couldn't believe her eyes. She had created something with her imagination. She ran into the garden and started to explore. She walked through the flowers, sat on the swing, and even swam in the pond. Emma had so much fun in the garden that she didn't want to leave, but eventually, it was time for bed. She said goodbye to the garden and went inside. As she lay in bed, Emma thought about her magical imagination. She realized that she could use her imagination to create anything she wanted. She could create new worlds, new creatures, and new adventures. Emma was excited about the possibilities. She knew that her imagination was a powerful tool, and she was determined to use it to create all sorts of amazing things. The next day, Emma went back to the garden. She brought her friends with her, and they all had a wonderful time exploring. They played games, swam in the pond, and even had a picnic. Emma's garden became a popular spot for her friends. They would all come over to play, and they would always have a lot of fun. Emma's imagination was a gift, and she used it to make the world a more magical place. She showed her friends that anything is possible if you use your imagination. The independent kids. Once upon a time, there were two kids named Jessica and Max who lived in a small town. Jessica and Max were best friends, and they loved to play together. But one day, they started to argue about who is going to do the dishes. I always do the dishes, Jessica said. It's your turn, Max. No, it's not, Max said. I did the dishes yesterday. The two kids argued for a long time, but they couldn't agree on who should do the dishes. Finally, Jessica's mom had an idea. Why don't you two try doing the dishes together? She suggested. That way, you can both learn how to do it, and you won't have to argue about it anymore. Jessica and Max agreed to try it, and they were surprised to find that they actually enjoyed doing the dishes together. They worked together to wash the dishes, rinse them, and put them away. And by the time they were finished, they were both proud of what they had accomplished. After that day, Jessica and Max started doing more things together. They would help each other with their homework. They would take turns cooking dinner, and they would even do their own laundry. They realized that it was more fun to do things themselves, and they felt more independent. One day, Jessica and Max's mom told them that she was going to be out of town for a few days. Jessica and Max were a little bit worried, but they knew that they could handle it. They had been doing so many things together. Lately, they were confident that they could take care of themselves, and they were right. Jessica and Max did a great job taking care of themselves while their mom was gone. They made their own breakfasts, they did their own laundry, and they even cleaned the house. They were so proud of themselves, and they realized that they were capable of more than they thought. Moral of the story: it's important to be independent. When we learn to do things for ourselves, we feel more confident and capable. We also learn to be responsible and take care of ourselves. The importance of family. Nick and Sarah were two kids who lived in a small town. They were best friends, and they did everything together. They went to school together, played together, and even went on vacation together with their families. One day, Nick and Sarah's families decided to go on a camping trip. Together, they packed up their cars and drove to a beautiful spot in the mountains. They set up their tents, cooked dinner over the campfire, and told stories late into the night. The next day, Nick and Sarah went exploring in the woods. They found a stream, and they decided to follow it. They walked for a long time, and they eventually came to a waterfall. They were so excited. They had never seen anything like it before. Nick and Sarah sat down on the rocks and watched the waterfall. They were so peaceful and happy. They realized that they were lucky to have such great families. They had so much fun together, and they always supported each other. As they were sitting there, Nick and Sarah started talking about how important family is. They talked about how their families had always been there for them, through good times and bad. They talked about how their families made them feel loved and supported. Nick and Sarah realized that they were so grateful for their families. They knew that they would always be there for each other, no matter what. Moral of the story: family is important. They are the people who love and support us unconditionally. They are the people who make us feel safe and loved. We should cherish our families and never take them for granted. The joy of learning. Jaws and Hazel were two best friends who loved to learn. They loved to learn about everything from the stars in the sky to the insects in the dirt. They would often spend hours together, reading books, exploring the world around them. and asking questions. One day, Jazz and Hazel were playing in the park when they saw a group of older kids playing with a kite. The kite was flying high in the sky, and Jazz and Hazel were amazed. They had never seen a kite before, and they wanted to learn how to fly one. The older kids were happy to teach Jazz and Hazel how to fly a kite. They showed them how to hold the kite, how to run with it, and how to let it go. Jazz and Hazel were so excited to try it out. They ran with the kite as hard as they could, and then they let it go. The kite soared into the sky, and Jazz and Hazel cheered. They were so happy that they had learned how to fly a kite. As they watched the kite fly, Jazz and Hazel realized that learning was a lot of fun. They learned something new, and they had a lot of fun doing it. They decided that they wanted to learn more things, and they started to look for new things to learn about. Jazz and Hazel learned about all sorts of things. They learned about animals, plants, the solar system, and even about how to build a robot. They learned so much that they started to feel like they could do anything. One day, Jazz and Hazel were talking about all the things they had learned. They realized that learning had made them happier and more confident. They were no longer afraid to try new things, and they were always looking for new ways to learn. Jazz and Hazel knew that learning would always be a part of their lives. They loved the feeling of learning something new, and they knew that it would help them to grow and change. They were excited to see what the future held, and they knew that they would always be learning